at the time that Lewis and Clark had come to America, 100 years before that, there had been Native Americans that had traveled to France.
That's right.
And met with the king.
That's right. Yep. Yep. That's right. 1720s. There was a group of native people from Kansas, Missouri area, and they had been courted by the French because the French wanted to expand their fur trade into that area up the Missouri River. So they and the Spanish had recently suffered a terrible military defeat there in sort of what's today eastern Nebraska. So the French sent this guy named Etienne Bourgmont to make contact. He already had contact there. In fact, he had a son by one of the women in the Missouri tribe. Made contact, made some friends, made some allies, courted them, and then to sort of seal the deal, he took back a delegation of about 6 Indians. Now, this is from eastern Nebraska.
Which tribe was this?
There were several tribes. The Missouri tribe, the Illinois tribe, I think some Osage. And they were, then he then took them back from there down the Mississippi, down to New Orleans, and then over across the Atlantic to Le Havre. And then they went by coach from there to Paris. And they spent several months there in Paris, being feted by King Louis XV, visiting the Paris Opera, which they said was a great place full of sorcerers.
Sorcerers. Why did they describe it as sorcerers?
I think they figured these people were just sort of transformed before their eyes. They just became somebody else. They're great actors, of course. And I think that was it. They saw this famous puppet show on a Pont Neuf bridge, and they said this place was inhabited by small dwarfs. And they loved it. They were taken to the court of Fontainebleau. They showed their expertise at hunting by riding bareback in the Bois de Boulogne, the royal woods, naked and bareback, shooting pheasants. Had a great time. One of them, a woman who was in fact the woman who had borne Bourgmont's child, she married a sergeant in Notre Dame. They had a wonderful time, and the men liked just about everything except the men. The other men, the French men, they said they were sort of effeminate and sissy, and they said they smelled like alligators.
Alligators.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but this was this 1720s, so that's what 80 years or something before Lewis and Clark even made it out to that area. So,
that is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, what was the language barrier? How did they communicate?
Well, there were Bourgmont himself. Had lived for years among the Indians, and it was an expert on the Missouri River. So he was a Frenchman who came over, enlisted in the army, deserted, sort of went native, became a coureur de bois, a French mountain man. Took up with the Indians, had this child by this woman. So he knew the languages quite well, and there were other. Remember, these Indians, as you can tell in this story, were very cosmopolitan, very sophisticated. They knew English, or some of them did. So I think the point to remember is that this, long before our image of Americans, coming into this area, there was all sorts of contact between native peoples and Europeans, all sorts of exchanges. It was really a mixed world. A world that was far more complex, far more interesting, in my opinion, than the usual way that we remember it.